We're beginning with breaking news. We are learning the first details about what President Trump told special counsel Robert Mueller's team in response to those written questions he received. A source reveals what the president said about two key issues that are part of Mueller's Russia investigation. Joining me now, we have CNN reporter Kara Scannell, former federal prosecutor and CNN legal analyst Shan Wu, crime and justice reporter Shimon Prokupecz, and our chief political correspondent Dana Bash. Tell us about this new reporting.
Well, Brianna, as you mentioned, we are getting the first insight into how the president responded to Robert Mueller's written questions, which until now has been a big unknown. So sources familiar with this matter tell CNN two things. Number one, the president told the special counsel that Roger Stone did not tell him about WikiLeaks. And number two, that the president was also not told about the 2016 Trump Tower meeting between his son, campaign officials, and a Russian lawyer who, of course, promised dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now, the president's answers were described to us without providing any direct quotes, and said that the president made clear he was answering to the best of his recollection. But Brianna, these 2 points here, WikiLeaks and the Trump Tower meeting, they are really key, as far as we know, to Robert Mueller's central mission when he started this investigation, which is, was there any collusion between Team Trump and the Russians?
And if so, how high up does it go as well?
Yeah.
How is this different, what we know he's said here, compared to what he's said publicly?
So we're told, Brianna, that what the president said in these written answers is similar, matches actually what he has said in public. But of course, there's a big difference. These written answers would be subject to criminal charges if false. That's why it is our understanding that the president made clear his answers were the best of his recollection, which is standard for lawyers as a way to shield their client, to make sure that they're not in any legal trouble if their answers are challenged.
And especially, Shimon, because some time has passed since we know some time has passed, of course, since the Donald Jr. Trump Tower meeting with a number of campaign officials, including Jared Kushner, Paul Manafort, with the Russians. There was a blocked call that Donald Jr. Was talking to someone who had a blocked number after the meeting. He has said repeatedly that that was not his father. The president here is saying, to the best of my recollection. Where are we on the blocked call and how significant that could be when we know what Dana's reporting here?
And that is still a very significant thing that we don't have answered. We don't yet know who that blocked call was from. Look, the special counsel will know who that blocked call was from because we know they've subpoenaed phone records, emails, all that information they now have. Whether or not they get to follow up with the president, I think that's the key point here also. So do they now have enough to follow up to the president if this does exist, if there are phone calls, if there is information that people were communicating, whether it's WikiLeaks, whether it's the Trump Tower meeting, whether they were communicating in real time information to the president. Does this now, if this exists, is there enough information for them to follow up with the president about?
Shan, you're a former federal prosecutor. When you hear that these are the president's answers to these written questions from the special counsel, what's your reaction?
My reaction is I would really want to follow up. That phone call has been just a nagging red flag to me for a long time because it's such an easy answer. And I think it's significant he's talking about his recollection there because he's definitely leaving himself a little bit of fudge room.
So that is significant to you. That's not just lawyer speak, to the best of my knowledge. That's not just providing cover. Do you think he should be able to recollect if he did indeed talk to his son?
I think so. I mean, it is lawyer coaching. I mean, we tell people if you don't remember something, say that you don't remember it. Given these circumstances, I don't really believe that he wouldn't remember such a thing. And I always like my clients just to say, no, I don't think that happened.
Well, but that's not what he says, Kara.
No, and it also puts potentially his son in some legal jeopardy if his answer were to go the other way, because Don Jr. has testified before at least 3 congressional committees where he has said under oath that he did not tell his father about the email, about the meeting in advance of it. So if Trump answered the opposite way, that would also put his son in some trouble too.
And what about the WikiLeaks part of this, Shan? What's the significance there for you?
Well, the WikiLeaks part of it, there seems to be so much sort of tension building on that front. And I think that really is what Mueller's interested in, to really put the campaign in touch with the Russians. I mean, that's kind of the missing link there, is if you can connect those dots for it. And so I think that's what the significance is.
I think what's interesting is what we learned from the entire Corsi situation yesterday, is that there is information that the special counsel believes that they have, that Roger Stone was communicating with senior members of the Trump campaign about WikiLeaks. These documents that Corsi released to everyone doesn't say who that senior member is. Mm-hmm. And it's clear that the special counsel believes this. Whether or not they actually have solid information about this, or that they can present at a court of law and use in a criminal case, is a whole other thing. But at least we can tell, and when you read these documents that Corsi released, there is information. Something exists within the special counsel's office that says Roger Stone was communicating about WikiLeaks, about other stuff, with senior members of the Trump campaign.
And that's such an important point, Shimon, because it's connected to what we're reporting about the president's testimony. Because the context of this, of course, is that you talk to people even real time in 2016, it's like, oh yeah, Roger Stone was kind of kicked to the curb, but he still talks to the president all the time. So separate from this whole question of whether he talked to other members of the Trump campaign, Roger Stone, has been whether he had any side conversation with the president of the United States. And if the president has said, effectively under pain of criminal charges, no, with the caveat, as far as I recollect, that's important.
And the reason, Kara, that the special counsel is so interested in the WikiLeaks connection is because WikiLeaks dumped a bunch of hacked emails from Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman, John Podesta. And then you had some timing that seemed more than coincidental between then candidate Trump talking about WikiLeaks and Roger Stone tweeting, I believe, about WikiLeaks. How does that all fit together, and what does special counsel do if he can't actually connect the dots here?
Well, there are a lot of tweets that were, premonitions about John Podesta's time in the barrel coming up. And then you see there are these efforts behind the scenes to try to figure out information, particularly Corsi saying, telling Sarah Murray that, he created this document, this, to explain this email after the fact, because Roger Stone, kind of went out there saying that, this is based on Corsi's research, and then Corsi says the tweet came before the research. So, that shows that there's a bit of a cover-up, not necessarily illegal, but one that they're having, at least among themselves, to get their story straight about the timing here. And there's still a lot of missing links here. I mean, even if we see that Roger Stone might be saying to Corsi, well, come on, find out some information, we don't see the connection from Corsi to WikiLeaks yet. And so there are still some gaps in the information that is public, but that doesn't mean that Robert Mueller hasn't filled in those gaps either.
But they clearly think there could be a link, right, Shimon? Because Corsi his line is, well, this was just a prediction I had that WikiLeaks was going to do this. And I did. I shared my prediction with Roger Stone. He says, Roger Stone's like, no, he didn't tell me about that. So they're getting their stories kind of mixed up.
They clearly don't believe what Corsi is saying, because
the special counsel does not. Yeah.
Because when he came up with this story, he tells this story in one of the first interviews he did this week. He tells this story about how he's connecting the dots and he's doing forensic work, and it just kind of comes to him, and that's how he knew this. And he tells a story about how the special prosecutor, one of the special prosecutors, that just does not believe him. So they don't believe him. That's why they're having issues with it. And they may have other information that we just don't know about. The other thing that's important, I think, what Dana here is reporting, is that you would hope that, given how much trouble people have gone into when they appear before the special counsel and that they lie, you would hope that the president is not dumb enough to do this. You would hope that his lawyers are not dumb enough to go ahead and lie. And you would hope that they have done some work so that it doesn't set him up in what he's been calling a perjury trap. He has, by saying he doesn't recall, obviously that protects him in some light. But imagine if the special counsel comes out and has information in this report that refutes this entire story. That's going to be a pretty big deal.
Shan?
Yeah, I mean, to Kara's point, I think it's fascinating that he's trying to couch his memory that way, because if he really wants to stand up for his son there, he just needs to be completely confirming, absolutely, that didn't happen.
And I just want to be clear that the answers that the president gave to Robert Mueller were described to us. So we don't have and so the description from our sources was, the gist was, as far, to the best of my recollection.
Sure.
We don't have the exact wording.
Yep.